Hello and welcome to
Hey, we like your pod.
And we're going to tell you why. Hi, it's Dawn here, and I am trusted
Trusted by my joint partner.
trusted by everyone. I am joined by my trusted partner, Matt Pickett.
Hello.
How you doing, Maddie?
I'm good. Dawn, how are you? How are you? What's happening with you?
I'm okay. I'm still in Wisconsin. Can you believe it?
That's awesome. Having more time in Wisconsin, who wouldn't want that in their life? I mean, it's a wonderful place. And you have close proximity to Kringle and that awesome pizza we had. So
Kringle
like you're winning.
And what was I going to say? Oh, and Katie and I, when we were in Green Bay, she wanted some ice cream from Quick Trip. Mm-hmm. After we went to the Hinterland Brewery and did our Titletown stuff, and she's like, "I want some ice cream at Quick Trip," and I'm like, "Okay, I'm too full." And then of course I got some ice cream too, and they have like the little pints of ice cream, mm-hmm. and they have Cheesecake Factory ice cream.
Cheesecake Factory ice cream. Oh my goodness! Hey, Jason.
Hi, Jason, and our special guest, Jason Perone. Look at that backdrop. Oh, my gosh.
Jason's coming to us live from Lambeau Field. How are you, man?
I am. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, you are. Beautiful. You're audible, and we're already live.
We are live from Lambeau Field. Absolutely. This is where, and never mind the floating shirt that you see over here. Where Dawn and I last, we met in person right outside the gate.
Right there. Absolutely. Yeah, that was a fantastic time. And of course, Matt and I saw each other the night prior at the fun gathering. So happy. What are we celebrating? What national day is it today?
Keep talking and I'll find out.
Yeah, because I know it was National Taco Day this past week, which is really big out here in the Southwest.
I missed that.
Really big.
It's National Do Something Nice Day. And so the Commanders are doing something nice to the Bears and
naturally
just letting them run away with this game.
You know, you're not doing something nice to your audience by having me on, right?
We are. And hello, Bill. It's nice to see you.
Hey, Bill.
In the chat. So what was I talking about? Oh, so I discovered in Wisconsin that Quick Trip has some kind of exclusive agreement with Cheesecake Factory, and they have Cheesecake Factory cheesecake ice cream.
Oh,
by the pint.
I did hear that as I first popped in the studio, and I'm like, this is how I know I made the best decision on this show. I have the worst sweet tooth.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, it is wicked. Yeah, it is wicked. And I'm not even from Boston.
Yeah.
Wicked sweet tooth.
I really do. Well, Matt, if you've noticed too, like, what do I always drink? Rum and Coke. It always has to have something sweet. That's my that's my go-to. So I got to tell you, I was looking for a few of those. We all went to the Saints game, and the first half of that game, I was needing a couple rum and Cokes. I think we were all needing some comfort. Yeah,
we were until the end.
That was good stuff.
I finally got my voice back.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So
mine was shot.
Yeah. For a few days, I was like really croaky, and then it's kind of coming and going since.
Yeah. So that's where my teacher training comes in handy, because my voice was fine even that night. It just know how to use my voice, how to project without damaging my vocal cords. So that's transferable skill right there. Well, Dawn, Jason, you should have heard the way Dawn was screaming. It was hilarious. Just the weirdest screams, just the weirdest.
Well, because I was screaming the wrong way and ruining my voice. And like within 10 minutes, I'm like, oh my God, I can't scream anymore, and I need to make noise. Mm-hmm. And so then I was doing the
That's what it was.
Yep.
But only louder, really loud.
Yeah, super loud.
So you got to do well. You got to do what you got to do. You got to do what you got to do. Whatever we did worked on that particular day.
Yep.
It was the Lions game was a tough one. But
Yes, that was awful.
Oof. Yeah, we were live during it last week. It was.
I will. Well, yeah, I guess. Well, it's a good way to take the edge off is to just focus on this and not watch, you know, what was going on there. But yeah, that was a tough one. And then I appreciate you guys with all your kudos for Quick Slants this week because I spent some time talking about the Lions game, the crowd, and that whole thing there too. And I'll be in Las Vegas for the Raiders game.
Nice. That's closer to home for you, I suppose, right?
It is. It's a 1-hour flight, so I have no excuse. I have to go.
Yeah,
gotcha. A lot of the Southern California friends are going to be going. Yeah,
it'll be good.
Like I think you might run into a few of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of people going to this game, and then the few of the locals that I know have said that Packers fans are going to pack the place.
I believe it.
Yeah, I was wondering if that would happen. I was kind of guessing it.
So
and Devontae will say, "Oh, they came for me."
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm excited. So Jair hasn't played for a couple weeks. We hopefully he's back, right? It sounds like he will be. And Devontae got hurt a little bit in the last game, and they were talking about a clavicle, and then he came back in the game because he's a warrior, and so it sounds like we are going to get that vaunted matchup between Jair and Devontae.
It might be a little bit like, have you guys seen the movie Up? You know, the Pixar movie?
Yeah.
There's that scene near the end where both like the old men are fighting and they keep like cracking their backs and stuff like that. It might be that kind of a matchup between the two of them. We'll see, but it should be a lot of fun regardless.
Right.
Yep.
So, I forgot what I was going to say. Okay. So that was one of my screws, and then the other one was when they did the jump song. How does that go, Matt? The jump?
Well, there's like the sound that kind of happens throughout, you know?
Yeah, that ooh. Then I would scream. I would go, ah!
Yeah, right.
But only much louder. And Matt still laughs at it. I kept doing it because he kept laughing. So I'm like, I'll stick with it because I could do that without my throat. I was like, ah!
Wow, I didn't realize we had so many talents. So we could just turn this into a talent show.
Yeah, talent show screaming. Who's got the best scream?
Yeah, turn it into who's. I do have to tell you. So since I started podcasting, that's always my icebreaker and any like company stuff. Where they're like, tell us something fun about yourself. I'll tell them that I do a podcast, and everybody's so flabbergasted. They think it's such a big deal. And I'm like, no. You're thinking McAfee. Like I'm not that level on either front. I'm not that popular, and I'm also not that way. Right. But that's my fun icebreaker.
Right.
It's a good one for sure. Well, I'll mention it sometimes to people and they'll be like, oh my goodness, like, is that like a lot of work? It's like, no, Dawn does all the work. I show up for an hour every Thursday and pretty straightforward. Just talk about the things we listened to and read this week. It's super easy actually. So which is a good note to folks out there. If you're thinking about doing a podcast, try it. It's fun. Try it.
It's fun. Come and be our guest and we'll tell you all about it.
Right.
We'll show you behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
how the cookies are made.
That's right.
Yes. That's a nice way of saying it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, sweet tooth. I got a substitute in cookies.
There you go. That's right.
I don't have a sweet tooth, but man, Cheesecake Factory cheesecake ice cream is really good.
It does sound good. Yeah.
Yeah, they have like original, and I saw strawberry, but I just went with the original.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, Jason, this is the first time you've been a guest on our show. So most of our audience knows you probably, but just for those who don't, and for us to get to know you a little bit better, we like to start out by reading your Twitto, which is your Twitter biography. So
all right.
Your Twitto reads, host of the Quick Slants podcast at Game On Wisconsin, co-host on Pack-A-Day podcast, and hashtag Packers, hashtag Go Pack Go, which is maybe why you're here. Hashtag D-backs and hashtag We Are the Valley. And your website is AZ Game On Wisconsin. AZ obviously is the abbreviation for Arizona. So gameonwi.com. So our first and most important question is, who is and where is the Valley?
The Valley is in Phoenix, Arizona. Nice and toasty, sunny Phoenix, where we're still in the mid 90s during the day. But October is exciting here because this is when the the coolness starts to make its way into the middle part of the day. And then by the end of the month, it's real nice and it's bragging weather, but it's still warm during the day, but we're starting to cool off at night. But I live in the Phoenix metro area, and hence that is where the D-backs thing. And then the We Are the Valley is actually for the Phoenix Suns. So I tried to find what their hashtag was that will bring their logo up. And I couldn't, like, hashtag Suns apparently is not it, right? So and I don't know, because you got the Mohegan Sun, or the Sun, who are in the WNBA, and then obviously the Sun, the star that makes life possible on Earth, right? So there's a lot of competition, and the Phoenix Suns, to be fair, have not been as noteworthy or newsworthy as the sun in the sky lately over the past many years. So apparently the best they could come up with was We Are the Valley. So that is my ode to the Phoenix Suns.
Nice. Love it.
Yep.
Love it.
Yep.
Well, so you're way down there in Arizona. So how did you become a Packer fan, and who can we credit for dragging you into this
wonderful fan base?
Well, technically you'd have to thank my late father, Jim, who way back in the day moved us out of the state of Illinois up to Wisconsin when he got a job with Harley Davidson. And so I was very young, hadn't started following sports yet, moved up there when I was about 7 years old. And I wasn't a Bears fan per se, but like moved up there. And then like the next year, the Bears were in the Super Bowl, and most of my extended family is from the Chicago area. So they wanted the Bears to win. So I actually supported the Bears in that Super Bowl. That's like my fact that I probably shouldn't have just shared on air, because now it lives on the internet forever. But I grew up, a year later, funny story too. A year later, I found myself, there was a Monday Night Football game between the Bears and the Packers. So it's Super Bowl champion Bears at Lambeau, and they're taking on the Packers. It's Monday Night Football. Packers didn't play a lot on primetime back then, as you remember. They weren't very good. But I found myself, for whatever reason, and there was no outside influence at all, wanting the Packers to beat the Bears. And I don't know why. And that was kind of like the game that I say that started my Packers fandom. It wasn't because of a person. It was just life. And I grew up, and then I spent most of my elementary, middle school. I was halfway through high school when we moved out as a family to the Phoenix area. And that was when Brett Favre that was 92. So that was when Favre had just come on board. And I got out here, and I'll tell you, the Phoenix Cardinals weren't great and nothing to talk about then. They still aren't great, nothing to talk about now. So there was no way I was adopting them. But I will say, the second the wheels hit the ground, the day that we moved out here, the Suns were very good that year. That was the year they went to the finals against Jordan and the Bulls, and they had Charles Barkley. So I became an instant Suns fan. So sorry, Bucks and Bucks fans. And then the Brewers, I just kind of lost touch with as well. But I've never, ever, ever let my Packers fandom go.
I love that.
Nor should you. It's a great franchise, of course.
Yeah.
Winningest franchise in NFL history.
That's right.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
Yep.
So, okay. So We Are the Valley is sort of like, I think I'm in the San Diego area. So it's the San Diego Padres. I forgot what their hashtag was. I haven't been really paying attention that much this year because they're not doing that great. So I know I'm guilty, but I'm not a fan, like a fan of baseball in general. So, yeah. But so you grew up, you were born in Chicago, but you're crediting your dad. So your dad wasn't a Bears fan? Or are you crediting because he moved you to Wisconsin? He moved us to Wisconsin.
Yeah, my dad was never a really big sports fan, but he became a huge Packers fan when I got into it. My brother got into it. I have younger brothers, about 4.5 years younger than me. But my dad became a huge fan. In fact, I still put out the jersey that he wore up until we lost him back in 2015, which was Charles Woodson's number 21. I still put that out every time I'm watching the game at home. And I had that on underneath my Jair jersey at the game.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Yep. So I always wear it, take him with me. He's always with me. But I guess I saw that question. I was thinking about it too. And I'm like, man, I just became like, I guess we'd have to credit just the state of Wisconsin and maybe my teachers at school and my classmates. I mean, of course, everybody was wearing Packer stuff. And I'm like, what is
everywhere?
All this?
That's right.
So
it's definitely the case that it's such a, like, it's so deeply ingrained in the culture in Wisconsin that I feel like I'm a Packers fan because I grew up there and it was just everywhere. So it's like, it feels like putting on a jacket at this point. It's a nice cozy jacket of home. So it's like, if you move there, how can you not be swayed to be a fan of the team? Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So
makes sense. And Bill from Packers Reddit is here. He says, hey, we say hey, but also he says he's going to be at the Packers at Broncos game in 2 weeks, and that's at Broncos in Denver. So let's hope that we can right the ship on Monday night and then
keep it right.
Dial that Broncos team in and give Sean Payton something else to be dragged on. Dragged over Twitter.
Whatever we can, because his Saints teams were always really good. The Packers had some really tough games against the Saints, especially when they were in New Orleans. Like in 2008, 2014, those Aaron Rodgers Packers really didn't get beat too handily very often. But I feel like in New Orleans, those games just always went sideways.
Yep. I remember that.
Well, something exciting must have just happened because my sister and my mom are in the living room screaming. So, and believe me, it's not for the Bears. So I'm guessing that Washington
finally scored some points. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They had the one field goal when we clicked the go button. So you see anything there, Matt, in terms of a score or a
something's
replay?
happening? I mean, they're picking up points. Yeah. My goodness.
Good.
They just went for a 2-point try and I think they got it. So that's probably what they were. Yeah, so I have like notifications on for a number of different people on Twitter. So I went over to my phone and like a Tom Grassi notification came down that said, and then halftime happened. So I was like, oh, they must be coming back, I guess. And
that's exactly they're coming back. Oh, and Ohana Packers edition. Hello,
which I assume is Joe, probably. Right?
Joe,
Joe, is that you, Joe? Commanders just
so he says, look at that handsome face on the screen. Thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate that.
You misspelled Matt Pickett. How did you misspell that? Come on.
But here's the thing. You'll see that I did reply to that in the chat and said, it's true. He's a stunningly handsome fella. So right there.
Oh, now you got me blushing on camera.
Oh, now we do. We like to do that here. Okay, so let's see. What other good questions? So we have you provide a lot of really great content for the Packers community, and including the quick slants. I can't speak tonight. Super tired. I have an excuse. And Pack-A-Day podcast. Now, what day are you on Pack-A-Day?
Thursday.
Mark Eckel, who is awesome.
Oh, with Mark. Okay. I forgot that. That's right.
Yep.
Okay. So Thursday night, and then do you kind of have a theme that you generally cover aside from the weather?
Yes, actually. So funny story, and I don't know if you knew this too. We have not done the weather.
I was going to ask what happened with that. Yeah, why did you guys drop that? I've been wondering.
Well, I will say, so I started to kind of wonder because it was kind of like a fun, like, hey, we had Paul Brettel as well. So I was like, well, perfect. We have somebody on the East Coast because Mark's in Myrtle Beach, Paul was in Green Bay, and I'm in Phoenix. So we've got all three corners of the country, and we would just real quickly do our weather. And then all of a sudden we started getting people chiming in from where they were, and we were getting weather from Sweden, overseas, Poland. Like, it was insane. And so all of a sudden it became like 7-8 minutes long at the beginning of the show. And I was like, are we losing anybody? And I could have sworn at one point you guys talked about it on one of your shows a long time ago. Probably. And I kind of was like, I was like, is this played out? You know what I mean? Like, do we need to, I think it was Dawn.
It was.
It was Dawn. Like, and so I was like, I said to Mark, and I said, hey, I said, we're kind of being talked about, but like the weather, I don't know if it's like, it's popular. Like we should probably, so what we do now is, so Dawn, it's your fault. No, I'm just kidding.
I know.
Yeah.
So now what we do is we try to, and I need to reach out to my group and let them know, but when the seasons change, we'll do like a weather,
Oh, that's a good idea.
But otherwise, no, Mark and I cover we break down the matchup of the Packers defense against the opponent's offense. So we did the Packers defense against the Raiders offense, and it's usually Green Bay defense versus whoever. Now this next week we're gonna have to come up with a topic because it's bye week and we won't have anything everything there. But Mark and I have been podcasting pretty much when I became a regular back in 2019 on Pack a Day. Mark and I were paired up, and I think we originally started on Saturdays, and then we moved.
I remember that.
And then we moved to a different day. I can't remember what the second day was. And now it's Thursdays. Yeah, it's been Thursdays for a while. And Paul is obviously, Mr. Baller, out of control with Packers Wire. And he's actually back on Pack a Day with Andy. They have a regular segment that they do together, a regular show that they do together. And, it's great to have him back on there. But that's Pack a Day.
Yeah. Nice. I love it. Well, I guess I'm honored that you listened to only think the thing I said, I say, I don't like to talk about the weather. That's all. That's all I think. So I always thought it was a little strange. I'm like, what are you talking about the weather? But I also think it's really cool that your audience was really getting into it. And so do they still tell you about their own weather, your audience? Do they still?
Not as much, because I told him, I said, hey, we're going to kind of put it on hiatus for a regular. And then I'll reach out when we do season change, and you can tell me like when summer's coming and all that other kind of stuff too. And we had somebody that was in Australia for a minute, which was going to be super cool because their weather is the opposite of ours, right? So their summer is like in December. And so right now they're moving into their summer season, and which has got to be so interesting too. It's like, the hottest day of the year is Christmas Day.
Right.
That just does not, for Wisconsinites or Packers fans, that just doesn't.
Yeah. Well, we're in San Diego. We're heading into our hottest month, September, October.
So it's gonna be like 71 degrees there.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, when we get to Santa Ana's, it can be dangerous because that means the wind is coming from the desert instead of off the ocean like it normally is. And then it's dry wind and dry heat. Yeah. And it's desert heat. And then we have fire dangers because of that. So this is our super dangerous time. But my friend who's picking me up at the airport this weekend said we're going to have Santa. And she had to go water a bunch of my plants and stuff because we're having Santa Ana's. They just started. So by me, it'll be maybe almost 80, maybe 70, high 70s, which is hot for where I live. Yeah. Coastal. Yeah. So, but it won't last.
I was out there in June, and I forgot about the humidity factor, and it was probably in the low 70s, but it felt very comfortable. Whereas in Phoenix, it could be in the low 70s, but it's very dry. So that can still feel like a little, I shouldn't call it cool. I mean, 70s, perfect weather, but it was in San Diego, it was a very comfortable 71. And we took my son we went to the San Diego Zoo, and that was a perfect temperature.
Yes.
Weather.
Yes. Beautiful. I love that. I had a friend visiting about 2 months ago, maybe August, whatever that was, from Wisconsin. And she brought her granddaughter, and I treated them to the San Diego Zoo for a day. So yeah, you got to go to San Diego Zoo when you visit San Diego. That's for sure.
Of course. And it's the best zoo in the world. So why not?
It's so awesome. Pandas are not there anymore. Boo-hoo. Come on, China. We want them back.
They had a good run there. I mean, they were there for what? 20, weren't they there for 20 years?
They were there for a long, long time. Probably more than that. But yes, love those pandas.
I'll write China a letter for you, Don. Okay. A firmly worded mail, what's it called? Letter to China.
Yeah.
Dear China.
It had to do with politics and stuff. I one year did the Triple Crown, which is a series of 3 half marathons in San Diego, the Carlsbad, the La Jolla, and I think the San Diego. Oh, America's Finest City. I don't know, whatever, but it was San Diego, where you end up at the zoo. And that whole race series, I did fundraising for the zoo.
Okay.
And I raced. My partner was a zookeeper type specialist, and she was in charge of the white rhino project, or involved in that, very much involved in that. There are 2 left in the whole world, and they're in San Diego Zoo. They're trying to repopulate. I learned so much on those runs. She's telling everything. I mean, she would identify all the birds. She's now at the Houston Zoo or something like that. But yeah, great memories of the zoo. I love it. I love hearing when people visit. It's so great. So Now, in Arizona, do you have many Packer fans that you hang out with, or are you kind of a lonesome?
No, there's a ton of, so Arizona, Phoenix is a big melting pot. So if you go to any sports bar, it's always going to be a mix of, that's what makes it fun watching football out here, is on any given Sunday, there is cheering at any given moment because somebody's team is doing something good. It's not all Cardinals fans. It's not all, thank God. It's not all like Packers fans. And actually, for a time, one of my former co-hosts when I was at Cheesehead TV, Jeremy Vanderlinden, he and I did a show called Cheesehead TV Live at the Watershed in Tempe, which is no longer, but it used to be this Packers bar. And we would do a pregame show, like a live pregame show. And people would come and watch the game and check us out. And we would live stream the show. And it was great. So yeah, there are a ton of Packers fans that live out here. In fact, one of the more famous, and I know that you've mentioned him several times on your show, is Monty Moore, aka @Ferd Turgeson on Twitter.
Yep.
And Tyler Herrick as well. We've gotten together a couple times out here.
Good.
So yeah, love getting together with the crew, and whenever we can meet everybody up. And then of course, my brother and some of our other friends as well too. I mean, we come out of the woodwork. So we're in every corner of the world. In fact, I went on a business trip. Actually, it wasn't a business trip. I should totally reword that. So I was on my honeymoon, which is not a business trip.
The opposite.
I used to travel for work. And so the trips would literally just get melged in my head. But anyway, big faux pas there. Anyway, I was on a honeymoon, and we were in Vieques, Puerto Rico, which is like this little island off of the mainland Puerto Rico. We had to fly this little puddle jumper in there. And so there's this tiny airport. I mean, it's the size of your living room, right? I mean, it's like one baggage carousel, and there it is. And outside of this, where you walk out off the plane to come into the baggage claim, there was this tiny little bar, and it had a Packers flag on it. In Vieques, Puerto Rico. We are literally everywhere in this world.
Yeah, I believe it.
Crazy.
I know it is crazy. It is crazy. Well, I wasn't a Packer fan, even though I grew up in Wisconsin. I was kind of an outcast for that reason. Didn't drink beer, didn't eat bratwurst, didn't like the Packers, as my mom just reminded me. So it wasn't until I met Packers fans in San Diego. And they just assumed because I was from Wisconsin, because Wisconsin has that kind of reputation about being football fanatic.
Yes.
So that I was a Packer fan. I was like, I don't like football, but they kind of brought me along and taught me about football. And now I'm the fan. I'm the most annoying fan you can imagine.
I've known more annoying fans than you, Don. That's for sure. So Bill mentions here in the chat that he found a Packers bar in Budapest, Hungary. It was wild. That's cool.
Very cool. Yeah, they are everywhere. I agree. Okay, so you do an awful lot, as I was saying as we all know, Pack-A-Day, and then your Slant podcast. So we like to ask our guests who it is in their personal life, who it is in your personal life, that you would like to shout out as the one person who helps you the most, so that you can do, like in the background maybe, so that you can do what you do for the Packer community.
Yes. And actually, Dawn, you got to meet her also at the Packers game. That would be my girlfriend, Elaine. She's awesome. She is obviously fantastic. Before we met, she was already a Packers fan. Her family was already Packers fans. Right?
Oh,
happened to be right, but of course, had she not been, I still would have converted. Right, still would have made still would have added her to the flock. But no, she's the absolute rock. Just making sure, we have my 10-year-old son part of the time when he's not with his mom, and just fantastic in making sure everything runs well, is taken care of, and helps set everything up. In fact, she helped set up the green screen that made Lambeau Field behind me possible. Actually, I'm just kidding. It's not a green screen. That's really Lambeau Field. I'm really here.
You're actually there. You're there. Yeah.
I'm really here with my microphone plugged into where, I don't know, but
I love it.
But she's been fantastic. And we have traveled to 4 Packers games now, and they're undefeated when she's been in the house.
Yep. It's because she's awesome.
Oh.
A charm, a wonderful, warm human being. And I was going to ask you, so how did you guys meet, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so we used to, we both worked at the same hotel for a short period of time. So I have spent most of the last 30 years in the Valley, in the Phoenix area, because I finished school, went to ASU, right? Yes, I went to Arizona State. Make your jokes, go Devils. And then I did get into the hotel industry. And for a period of time, I moved out and lived in Minneapolis. And this was about probably 6 years ago. Okay. And I was out there and was kind of a 5-year plan. I'm going to, do the Midwest as an adult. And JJ my son was young. And then a year and a half later, a good friend of mine got a really, really good job at a local hotel here and brought me back, said, hey, want you to come back and work at this hotel. And it was a beautiful property. It's actually a property I used to staycation at all the time. And she worked there for a short period of time. So when I first came back and started working there, and then she ended up moving out over to a different property, which, which probably helped a little bit to keep the focus. But so that was, 5 years ago. So it's been good. But again, I mean, everything was set up. It was all in the stars. Her family was already fans of the team. So
it was meant to be.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Well, I'm so glad I did get to meet Elaine, because I heard some great things about her from Katie.
Katie's
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Donna's talking about the stuff that you do. And tell me if I'm wrong about this, Jason. You were kind of like one of the founding people for Game On Wisconsin. Is that correct?
Yeah. So when Jake Westendorf, it was his brainchild, and he asked myself and Paul Brettel and Joe Arrigo in a way too, and Jeremy, to kind of help found this thing and build it and, bring on some more talent. So back in the spring of 2020, we hatched the idea and it launched in the summer. So it was a lot of work. Jake put a lot of work into it, and he's had to kind of step back from it because he's got his 2 littles at home and his family and everything else and work too. But he just, as just did a phenomenal job of getting that whole thing up and running. And Quick Slants comes out on Mondays, which is great because everybody's obviously still charged up over the game on Sunday. So love that time slot. I get a lot of really good engagement over there.
Yeah, and the work that you guys have done with that. I mean, the fact that it was the spring of 2020 that it started to come to be, it's like it was only that long ago. I feel like it's been around forever at this point. So like what a presence it has become, what a mainstay it is for like the extremely high level of content that is produced through them. And I would say that, I realize I have to, like, full disclosure, as the producer now for Lombardi's Bar, I am also kind of in the mix there. So I'm not trying to just be like self-promoting as a person who's like kind of in the mix there, but just to say, like, for the people who do the work with that, it's phenomenal stuff, so huge shout out to all that you did to get that off the ground and for the work you continue to do for it, Jason.
Thank you It's been awesome. So we called it that because we eventually thought, if we want to expand into other sports in Wisconsin, Badgers, Bucks, Brewers, we can. So Game On Wisconsin instead of something more Packers related, but it is obviously very Packers centric. There aren't any other sports shows yet, and the website itself is kind of defunct at the moment. I don't know if they plan on it. So Dan Kotnick, Jimmy Christensen, and Todd Varney took over when Jake stepped back, and they're co-running it together. And so we'll see what ends up happening with that. But a lot of great shows, live shows, and the great work that Matt does over on Lombardi's Bar, which is a blast every week.
I love that show. It's so much fun. Joe mentions here in the chat that people with Game On are great. Well, with the exception of Jimmy. Jimmy sucks.
Jimmy might even agree. I
mean,
he's
that's the thing about Jimmy.
He is. You know what he needs to do? Because I know he's watching or listening, whichever be. Jimmy, you need to bring back the fun videos of yourself doing the 40-yard dash, putting together tryout videos for the Packers. Like, we need that again. We need more of that in our life. If you haven't seen those, I don't know if they still exist. But Matt, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They're hilarious.
Oh my gosh, they were so good, and it's like, incorporate the kids. Come on, like, what's the point of having a brood if you're not going to put these fun videos together? So come on, Jimmy.
I'll text him later. I'll let him know it's time. It is time.
and back on that other point where there's Packers literally everywhere. Joe mentions that his former co-host was also Australian, and his current co-host is Hawaiian, and they spoke with a gentleman that has a Packers podcast in Turkey.
That's so cool.
So that's how it is. And hello, Lorenzo. Good to see you here. Hey.
Shout out to Joe's co-host, past and present. Of course, Nick Gregory is the Australian, and Mike Kawano is the Hawaiian fella he's talking about. Those are both some amazing Twitter follows, by the way, folks. If you're not following those guys, check them out. They're great.
Yeah.
Speaking of Twitter, we love to find out your thoughts on what you love the most about Packers Twitter, and what's the one thing that you would change if you had the power to change it?
Well, it's a great community. I've met a lot of really good people. 2 of them on the screen with me right now because of Twitter. We've grown this family, the tweet ups, Katie to everybody. Truth be told, Jake Westendorf and I, who've known each other for over 10 years, if not for Twitter. So obviously that's an easy answer there. It's built a great community, and I do think that the Packers fans are a special group. They really do get it. When I put out some of my thoughts or questions on Twitter, the engagement that I get, it's largely a very well-rounded, I've kind of put a couple of how do we feel out there tweets, and most everybody has been pretty level-headed, with the exception of that one guy, Matt, that you responded to, that guy, right? And there's always one or two, right? But if I had the power to change anything, I don't know. I guess if Twitter overall, it would be that Elon Musk doesn't run it.
There you go.
That would be it. But I think honestly, if I could change one thing, it would be like, just, if you could snap your fingers and like make the troll tweets just go away. Because unfortunately they're always out there, but I think the good far outweighs the bad. We have honestly the best fan base in the NFL. And I've talked to and interacted with a lot of others. I don't know. How do you beat Packers fans? It's a great group.
It's an amazing group, and it's an amazing community. I think about sometimes when somebody like hits a rough patch, and then somebody else jumps in with like building a GoFundMe to help that person out when they're in need, and the kind of stuff that you see occasionally, the way folks rally to help each other. It's amazing. And you mentioned the troll tweets. At least the good thing is that like that's going to be in any corner of any social media anywhere. There's always trolls doing their troll things. So it's like, well, it's not like our fan base is particularly like laden with them. It just comes with the territory, and they are annoying, but it is what it is. And mostly we just ignore them.
Yeah.
Mostly,
yeah, definitely.
Mostly we do. And it does seem like sometimes the negative comments can outweigh in our minds, like all of the good. So it's really, I think the Packers fans are pretty unique as well, and very knowledgeable about football in general, right?
Yeah, they get it. They really do. They get it. I think the biggest thing is everybody seems to I think everyone's got a good head on their shoulders for what this season is supposed to be and going to be. Like, they get the ups and downs. We're not going to be the 13-4 juggernaut anymore. If we are, then something, great happened, or something went very awry with the opponents. But really good head on the shoulders. And I think long-term, everybody understands, and it's not this meltdown fan base that you see. I mean, Bears fans, I obviously it's low-hanging fruit, right? But Bears fans just astound me, because if anybody should be good at what they deal with all the time, it's Bears fans. But now I think they're back to normal, and they're like, oh, okay, we remember where we exist, and this is our place in life, right? But for those first 3 weeks, it was just like you were kind of just watching, and it's kind of almost like, come on, you don't see it. I don't know. Again, whatever power in the universe saved 7-year-old me back then from making the great decision, because the Bears were actually that better team back then. They were doing well and beating the Packers all the time, but made the right choice. Stuck with it.
You did.
That's right.
Well, Jason, this is about that time in our show where we start transitioning over to our superlatives for the week. And did you bring any superlatives this week?
I didn't. Superlatives. I don't really have any, but I can hang and with you guys through yours, because I love this part of the show. And I have to say, the way that you set up the description because I follow the show, right? And the way the description is set up, I love that, because it's very intriguing, and it captures you, and you want to come in and you want to hear more about, how did this person end up getting this superlative? So.
Oh, I love that.
I like that.
Good to hear.
Think of something as we're going. So, if you think of one, let us know. You can jump in with it. So,
We'll do.
Don, you have 3, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will go first tonight because I have kind of a good, that was what we were just talking about, kind of segues into my first superlative.
Oh.
And the first superlative I have for this week is best fan reactions to a loss. And this is a comment on the YouTube feed of Matt LaFleur's press conference, where the actual title of this by Packers social media is called "There's a lot of improvement out there for us," because that was a little chunk of what he said. Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of improvement. It was a tough lot. We just looked so awful last Thursday night. But I wanted to just highlight a few of these amazing comments. As you mentioned, balanced view, a bigger picture, viewpoint, that kind of thing. So I won't go through all of them, but I mean, it's hard to pick my favorite, but here's one. This is a young football team, and there's a lot to be cleaned up through this season. I know it was not fun to watch, but the one thing I can know is not to be obnoxious and to stay positive. Yes. Hats off to the Detroit they came to play. I love that. I love that. And here's another good one. And this is actually from a Detroit Lions fan. And I love that when people are so civil. I try to do that. I try. But anyway. So this one is Mike, and he says, as a longtime Lions fan, I have the utmost respect for the Green Bay Packers and their historic franchise. It's a long season. Love will continue to grow and get better. Best wishes. I love that.
Oh, that's so nice.
I don't think Mike was at the game. I think the contingent of Lions fans that were at the game, I don't think they were on Mike's wavelength there. They were on a much different wavelength.
Mike's a class act.
But yeah.
One more. There's like tons under this. It's refreshing. I find it very positive to read through these. So as always, we share our superlative links in the description below after the show. Or if you're listening on the podcast, it's right there in the description. So the last one I'll read is, oh gosh, there's so many. Maybe two more. One's real quick. Tough loss, but I feel like our young team can come back from this and prove themselves. Right? Simple. And I mean, because you get a lot of really like you mentioned, a lot of negative comments, especially under the Packers social media and the coach, and people like to just throw, throw darts. And
the team account. The team account to me, and do you guys agree, is sacred? It should be sacred. Like if you're going to comment under the Packers account, like don't be that.
No. Right. I agree. Yeah. And so from Adam, we all have to remember that this is an evaluation season to see what we have and what we need to improve. This team as a whole still needs to figure out how to play 4 quarters of football. We even saw this same issue happen with Rodgers under center. So just like tons of really balanced and wise comments when we were really super heartbroken. I still say it was easy for me to handle Thursday night because we had such a great game on such a great ending on Sunday. But we also had such a great time because all of us, 20 some friends were together and it just was so epic. So anyway, so that was my first superlative, Matt. And it so kind of goes to the fans. And I am going to point out, obviously, the social media account on YouTube for the Packers, but do look through the comments if you want to feel good about your fellow Packer fans.
I love that. Don, that's awesome. Well, my first superlative actually fits really nicely with yours because mine is best positivity. So on, I think it was the Sunday, it must have been Sunday because it was Jimmy Christensen and Gage Bridgeford on the Sunday Pack-A-Day. Andy himself one was about like what's wrong with the Packers, and there's these terrible things, and it's kind of like cataclysmic to listen to. But then Jimmy Engages was like, here's some really great things about the Packers so far. Here's like some really wonderful things to like focus on and be really happy about with the crew. And I was like, that's what we need more of right there, because it's still like really doom and gloom after that terrible beatdown to the Lions last week, which it feels like it was more than a week ago, but it was happening exactly a week ago from when we're recording this. But anyhow, the perspective they brought, the chance to focus on like what's going well, because a lot of things are going surprisingly well, was really refreshing and really welcome. So big shout out to Jimmy. That's right, Joe. I said it. Big shout out to Jimmy and Gage Richford for a really nice episode of Pack-A-Day last Sunday.
Love it. I love it. Love the positivity. We always like the positivity.
You guys do.
All right. And here's another positive one, actually.
Ooh, all right.
Surprise, surprise. Because that's what we do here. Most civilized reaction from a reporter. And that goes
civilized. Should I put my glasses on now? So I'm a little more civilized.
This one goes to Pete Doherty. If you heard the press conference after the game Thursday night, we had a very frustrated coach out there giving a press conference, and Pete asked him a question, and the coach gave a very uncharacteristic answer. He was very frustrated, but Pete's like, hey, you know what? Coach Matt is super gracious. This doesn't even need to be, it's forgiven before it's even a thing. And I believe Coach Matt actually came out and called out Pete's name and apologized too. But I just thought it was very nice. All the civility between Coach and Pete, and no doubt all the other beat reporters that were there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the way how Matt LaFleur opened it must have been his Friday press conference by apologizing to Pete, because he was out of hand. Matt LaFleur was out of hand the way he reacted. Like that was not cool. I will say, in the moment, I thought it was kind of funny. Actually, I clipped it and I was like, this is weird. Jason was referring to that earlier, actually, because I had posted that clip in response to somebody who was saying some stuff to him on Twitter. But anyhow,
I missed that.
The fact that LaFleur apologized and Pete's response was like, "Oh, you don't need to do that. Like that's totally fine. Like we're good." That's good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, people are imperfect, and if they're 99% of the time doing it right, don't get them all over people for just one bad day or whatever. So,
well, it's easy to take that negative though, and as humans, we're kind of wired that way. It's funny where 99% of the time it's a positive experience at a restaurant, a venue.
Mm-hmm.
You have one bad experience and it just diminishes all of it. But to have the wherewithal to say, hey, you know what? One bad day out of 100, I don't have a problem with it. And because it was on a kind of a public forum. I mean, Coach really gave him a hard time.
Yeah.
That was a very, very classy response. I'll say, I'm not pandering. And I know I read more of the Wisconsin and Packers media because I follow the team very closely, but I feel like those that cover the Packers, I'm sure other teams have good beat writers and stuff like that. But I feel like they are a fantastic group of men and women that cover the Green Bay Packers. They do a really good job.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We're really fortunate that way.
That is true. Yeah. All right. Well, should we do my next one then, Dawn?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Jason, this one's about you, man. So this is best rebuttal, but it's actually rebuttals, parentheses S, because you and somebody else on their own podcast both kind of addressed this. So there was an awful lot of negativity about the Milwaukee package, the gold package, and the fans that were not there at the game on Thursday. People angry. It's like, oh, the people who show up are old people and they tell you to sit down. And also they sell their tickets to Lions fans. And it's just a lot of I mean, I understand it's a thing that is talked about, but it's kind of unwarranted because, and Jason, I'll let you take the floor if you want to on this. The fact of the matter is that's just how the market works at this point. You have a ticket you want to sell, somebody else can buy it. They can. It's not like they have to prove they're a Packers fan or something like that.
Right. So
actually, do you want to take that for a second, Jason?
I mean, yeah, and it was kind of, I don't know how you want to frame my superlative, and I know we want to keep it positive, so I don't want to say worst.
Oh take. No, you don't have to keep it positive. You really
I don't want to say worst take because it wasn't the worst take, but it was something along the lines of most worthy of most tradition worthy of being protected is the gold package, because let's please keep the gold package, right? It got a lot of heat for the number of Lions fans that we saw in the stands at the Thursday night game against the Packers, and there were a lot of fans that were upset about it, and there's pictures being tweeted out of how much blue there is in the crowd and how loud they were being. Okay, well, first of all, fans tend to cheer for things that are cheerworthy. And let's be honest, the Packers didn't have a whole lot going on for the first 2.5 quarters. They had a little spurt there in the third, or maybe it was early in the fourth.
It was the third, yeah.
And they just didn't have much. So of course you're going to hear the Lions fans, and listen, their team is good now. The Lions are actually a good team. And so I'm not going to say, oh, the whole midweek thing. Maybe that had something to do with it, but Lions fans showed up, right? So,
yeah.
And to Matt's point, yeah, it's hard to filter and determine who the tickets are being sold to anymore. And listen, the day that the internet came to be, this was bound to happen. This was inevitable, right? The access that we have, which, I am one of them. I live in Phoenix. I'm not in Wisconsin. I don't have Packer season tickets. So if there weren't as many, you had to, 30 years ago, you had to know somebody. And so then, the house is protected because they know who they're selling a ticket to, because their person is in front of them. They're not hiding behind a computer log on or, whatever it be. And they're not putting their tickets up for the highest bidder. But that's the thing about the United States and America is it's a capitalist world that we live in here. And so some people treat their season tickets as a business. And it's kind of like those tweets where like, would you do this for $1 million? If I handed you 4 Packers tickets and told you that if you sell these tickets to this game and forego going to the game, you will make your the entire cost of your season tickets back plus some. There's, it just money rules. And I don't say that in a negative way, as if I'm chastising anybody for taking the money and over going to the game, because, you got eight home games that you can go to. And again, for me, if we're being honest, as much blue as we saw, and I think it's again because they had more to watch, and there might have been some Packers fans that left early because they had to work the next day. And if your team's getting their butt kicked and you got to work the next day, maybe you try to beat traffic, right? But I think there were probably just as many Packers fans that bought their tickets from someone else in the house as there were Lions fans. Again, it's all about, just like the media. What does the media want us to see? What do they want us to focus on? Right. And so that was kind of my whole take, is like, just let's take a step back here and realize that Lambeau is a good experience. And I think it's going to be good the rest of the season. I looked at the rest of the home games, and you have to have a combination of two things: a good team and a very well-traveled fan base. And I guess maybe some fan bases travel well, whether the team is good or not, right? Packers fans, maybe one of them back in the day when the team wasn't very good. The Chiefs are really the only game left on the schedule that I think have the potential to really, make have a big showing in Lambeau. I mean, otherwise you've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Chargers, who are in Los Angeles. I don't know if their fan base is even up and running. I feel like if the Chargers were a website, it would be that under construction, come back later. It would be that whole thing. And then of course you got the Vikings and the Bears that have yet to come to Lambeau, but they're both having rough starts to their season. So by the time those games come, they're in winter. The Bears are the last home game of the season. There may not be very many opposing fans. I really think this is going to be more of a one-off.
There you go.
Definitely. And a couple of things I want to kind of highlight. You said that the media will kind of, paint a picture. And so on the broadcast on Amazon over here last week, they were taking like special pins, like, close shot on like a section of blue. It's like, well, you can pick those out like at any game, any two teams anywhere. You can find chunks where it's like especially heavy with one jersey or the other. And it's just ridiculous, because like I saw a lot of tweets from people who are actually at the game. They're like, it's not as bad as people are like making it look on the broadcast, or because they were seeing like tweets coming through as they're at the game. It's like, it's not as bad as what they're saying. Like, it's actually it's kind of what you normally see, maybe a little bit more. But exactly, Jason, it's like the Lions are good right now. So if I were a Lions fan after like, God, just decades of them being terrible, with the occasional flashes here and there, I'd be excited. And Lambeau's a destination that people want to actually go to, as this amazing, cathedral of football. And then the other thing I want to mention is that, if I had 4, season tickets, 4 seats with season tickets, and I, looked at what was going to be the ones that are part of my package, and one of them was a Thursday night, I'd be like, no, I don't want to like go to a Thursday night game. That sucks. They're always weird games, and it's a strange time to go to a game anyhow. So, if I'm going to sell one to like make up the cost of the other games I'm going to go to, I'm going to sell the Thursday one, like for real. Yeah. Right.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. You can't control where that ticket's going to go once.
Well, back in 2009, when the Cardinals hosted the Packers for that crazy playoff game where 1 billion points were scored. Everyone remember that game? I was at that game. And one of the reasons why I was able to go to that game was because the Cardinals tried to only sell tickets to Phoenix and Arizona zip codes for the first hour or two.
Oh,
sounds good. I am a Packers fan who lives in the Phoenix area, so I was in the queue and bought my tickets right away. So you really can't, Dawn, to your point, you can't. You can't. It's impossible to know. The internet just makes it impossible to know everything. You just can't.
Yeah.
So can I bring it back to the superlative here then? It was best rebuttals. I mentioned 2 because the other one that was good, very, very much of the same mind as yours, Jason, was Kelly Hodgson on Cheesehead Radio. Again, this is the podcast that it's her and the famous Jersey L and CD Tundra Vision, CD Angeli. They do together. I feel like people, and I mentioned this before earlier in a couple months ago, like this is a podcast people are not talking about, and I don't understand that because it is so much fun. I love the work they do. They break the show down into like 4 quarters. It's just they have this amazing rapport. It's a very zippy, fun listen. They keep it really light for the most part. Highly recommend it. Again, that podcast is called Cheesehead Radio, and you can find that on the PackersTalk.com website. So a quick plug for them there. That's a great show, you guys.
Yay! Love that. Well, most civilized and now to most uncivilized comments. Now, this is in follow-up to something not Packer related, but football related, NFL related. I spoke about this in the past, and this is about the news that Michael Orr was suing his adoptive, I put in air quotes for those of you who are not watching, parents because they had him sign into a conservatory agreement, which was really inequitable, really unfair. He was young. He thought he was being adopted by them. They never adopted, the whole story. I'm not going to, rehash that. If anyone wants to know more about that, I'll get you the information. But
sorry, is this the Blind Side guy that we're talking about?
Yeah. So what I was just going to say is, so this is the movie was The Blind Side. It made $300 million and all of that. And the subject, it was based on his story with his, again, in quotes, adopted parents and his rise through high school, college football in the NFL to get into the NFL. So, but basically there was this great news this week about this, which I was going to mention because I'd like to follow up on these stories. And the good news is that Michael Orr's conservatorship was dissolved by the judge. Now, by all accounts, there wasn't going to be a fight about it. The parents, the non-parent parents, and the people who claimed they adopted them and told everybody they adopted him always said that they were willing to allow him out of that conservatorship. But it had to be done, and the publicity was out there. And so now the story's out there. Michael is also suing them for some money because he didn't get any money from this movie and probably other things. But it was just a really weird story and unfortunate, and probably, we'll never know exactly what happened, right? But the most uncivilized and unwelcome comments came from the dude who wrote the book, The Blind Side, which the movie was made into from. I can't speak tonight. And this is a famous author named Michael Lewis, and he's written like Moneyball and Liar's Poker, and I just want to tell you, this Michael Lewis is friends with the Tuohys, the adopted parents, again in quotes. He's been friends with Mr. Tuohy for pretty much his whole life. And so he's gone evidently out on the record more than once about this, but I think it's quite unseemly. I want to just share a little bit about what, let's see what this article was. I forgot. It was on MSN. Okay. But I think it came from another source, but the link will be in the comments. But let me just tell you some of the comments that Michael Lewis made about this. What we're watching is a change of behavior. Again, this is author Michael Lewis. And this is from the Guardian newspaper. Okay. He says, this is what happens to football players who get hit in the head. Ooh. They run into problems with violence and aggression. Okay, he said that. It's awesome. Quoted. Okay, here's what else he said. Lewis also claimed that Orr, who played in the NFL from 2009 through 2016, was not useful, in quotes, on the football field until he met the Tuohys while attending a private high school in 2003, because of course anyway, before moving in with the Tuohys, however, he had already been recognized in Tennessee as one of the top players.
Yep.
Okay, now this gets even worse. And this is from The Guardian. It says these and other verbal attacks, and I consider them attacks, were published in The Guardian on Tuesday, days after the judge released Oher from the Tuohy's conservatorship. So, dude, okay, he wrote the book. Okay, I'm so mad. Okay, so
yeah,
so terrible. Yeah, so in August, Oher alleged that the Tuohys tricked him into signing the conservatorship by telling him it was similar to adoption. Of course, that's not true, and that they would make him part of their family, and that is really sad. And they obviously did not do that. And or also a challenge. And they did tell people, they introduced him as their adopted son. So this isn't like something he made up in his head because he was hit in the head.
Right.
So or alleged that they took advantage of him financially. And so the suit for the money is ongoing. Let's get back to Michael Lewis in the most uncivilized comments. Lewis told The Guardian that Oher was, in quotes, was not a strong voice on his life, and that he had to dig the story out to write the book. Now, check this out. For those of you who don't know this, Oher was a kid who basically was on the streets, putting himself to school and getting school lunches and that kind of thing. Do you think maybe his expectations of what this child might want, and he was a child, I mean, he was a very young man when this book was written about him in the movie, might have had difficulty expressing what his life was like. He was probably super traumatized. It just makes me sick.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see. Lewis also suggested that Oher worked with his lawyer to fabricate a story because, and this is the author saying this, because the public would, quote, get behind him if he makes these accusations. Okay, so he's just saying that these are accusations and it's for publicity. So this is the last thing he said. What I feel really sad about is I watched the whole thing up close, Lewis told the Washington Post in August. They showered him with resources and love. That he's suspicious of them is breathtaking. The state of mind one has to be in to do that. I feel sad for him. I mean, come on. Jeez. Like, how patronizing and how pompous of him to say that after the truth is staring them in the face. But I couldn't, I mean, I read the one statement, I'm like, that was bad. Then there's another statement and another. And this is, like I said, this isn't the Tuohys. This is their family friend, Michael Lewis, who actually probably made money on the book and the movie deal. But we're not talking about that. And of course, he's claiming there wasn't that much money, that the Tuohys really didn't make any money on the movie. And that may or may not be true. But the point is, there was a lot of trickery going on, and it wasn't theirs to do. I mean, it was fraudulent to claim that he was their adopted child, and that was their intentions in the first place, because they could have had adopted him, and they just hadn't. So I'm really fired up about that. I wanted to follow up because a lot of people just heard the good news. Oh, they released him from his conservatorship. But actually, it wasn't even the Tuohys who did it. The judge just did it without them. And yeah. And then, but they're missing all this slander by a family friend. And it's just, to me, I don't think this is over yet. I don't think
well, and Hollywood dramatizes things. And so, there's always that side that you don't know of, that what was really said and happened behind closed doors. I mean, the movie very much made it sound like an adoption type situation. For those of us to hear that this wasn't really an adoption, who knows? It could be a bunch of different things. It's a good lesson in, gathering all the facts before you really rush to any kind of final judgment, because we don't know. And we've all heard one version of a story, and then later somebody's come out and said, hey, I made the whole thing up. Right. I'm not saying that's happening in this case, but it can certainly happen.
Oh, it sure can. That's a really good reminder. I think I just always come back to, because I was kind of worried about, it's like, what's going on here? But there are so many antidotes of how the Tuohys introduced him as their adopted son, and he clearly wasn't that. So if nothing else, that just really shows you a glimpse of what kind of people they are. Like, why didn't they adopt him then? So it's just that it's so distasteful and heartbreaking. It really is that he thought these people cared about them, and they didn't. He never really was their adopted son, and so anyway, yes. Had to add in. So sometimes we're not positive. Well, we're positive, but I'm very positive about Orr, and I'm very happy about him at least getting to the point where the conservatorship was dissolved. Yeah.
I mean, for as much as like we bring the positivity, it's also like, we'll shout out, or not shout out, but rather call out the people who are doing nonsense like that for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it needs to be said for sure, Don. Absolutely. Yeah. And also, Joe mentions in the chat here, he said, I think Orr has come out many times saying the book and most definitely the movie took liberties is more fiction than fact.
He did.
I've heard that too. Yeah, I've heard that too. Now, if we want to swing it back in a positive direction, we can of course come back to Michael Orr, but I just want you to know it's 30-20 Bears over Commanders.
I want to know. We gotta go. We gotta watch this ending.
Oh no, I'm having a blast. Let's not break up the party. I'm just letting everybody know, like, hey, this could be another. I mean, the Bears last week, right? We had a lot of Sundays with no football, so Packers fans get to eavesdrop on the rest of the NFL. And I got the ticket, and I have to say, the ending to that Bears game was really something. I was like, I would love to be in that locker room. Just, oh man, Justin Fields, just the most maligned quarterback, especially among Packers fans, has a pretty good statistical game and then makes the one mistake. Speaking of one mistake that ruins all the rest of it too, right? So
right.
Yeah, there was another thing too that I wanted to mention as well, that there was a media member, but we don't have to get into names, but there was a media member for the Packers this past week who I think it was during the Thursday night game, if I'm not mistaken, called attention to Quay Walker's Wonderlic score.
Oh, yes,
and
it's ridiculous.
And I'm not going to. I'll just say this: tweeting about players and at players, not a fan. Right?
No,
not cool.
Not a fan if it's negative. If it's going to be negative, but for somebody that covers the team to throw that out there, I was. After I just finished a few minutes ago saying how great the Packers, media team is, and I do believe that. I do think for the most part that they are, but to see something like that too was kind of like along the points of this guy coming out and making the comments about Michael Orr too, where it's like, did you really want to have said that out loud?
Right. Yeah, and I think too with this Michael Lewis, it's like he's been doing this for years, and that's what blew me away. It wasn't just one mistake. It's just like, what is going on here? So, yeah, I missed that. Thankfully, I missed that because poor Quay. I mean, honestly, I'm still to this day like I don't understand this because he really wasn't running and then jumping over. He literally just was standing there and jumped straight up. And so I thought the penalty was
because it was 3 yards, and you can only do it from 1 yard is the way how that works. And
okay, yeah, I didn't quite understand it, but obviously he didn't. That's more important.
Yeah, like he should know, but yeah, I mean, to take it back to you here, Jason. I mean, nobody cares about the Wonderlic anymore. First of all, and second of all, the thing that was the sort of positive side of that person doing that is how much people dunked on him and on Twitter, just like quote tweet, quote tweet, as a reaction to that. I think everyone kind of like rallied to say like, dude,
don't do that.
Not classy. And then to your point, Matt, the Wonderlic is not an all-encompassing intelligence test. It doesn't tell you how smart somebody is. It's one metric. It's one measurable.
Right.
So, I've taken it a couple times just to kind of see, and it's like it's all about like super fast problem solving, and it's not football intelligence by any stretch. It's like one kind of way of thinking about things.
Right.
Oh, I'm glad I missed that. I've been super preoccupied this week. Oh, okay.
All right. Well, I have one more superlative. Should I jump into that here?
Yeah, let's hear it, Maddie.
All right. So, we've said it a couple times on the show here, any given week, if we were like hard up for a third superlative, it's just so easy to like rely on certain, people who do a lot of good work. In this case, I'm talking about you, Andy Herman. But the thing is, like, I couldn't let this one just go by without commenting on it because it was so friggin' good. So, this season, Andy and Justice Mosqueda have been doing like a group podcast that goes out in both the Pack-A-Day and the Acme Packing Company podcast feeds. So, I mean, I've long seen both of these guys as being two of the most brilliant football minds in our Packers sphere. So the fact that they're doing a podcast weekly together, dude, we are beyond blessed as Packers fans. So this one is like, the meeting of the minds, talking about like how could the Packers fit the run issues that we're having that have been our running game is nothing right now. It's like negative nothing, it's bad. So they really dug into it, brought their best takes, talked through it, bounced some ideas off each other. It's phenomenal. It's one of the best episodes of anything I've heard in a long time. It was that good. So as much as I would love to not mention Andy Herman because it's too easy to grab one of his things every week, because I try to highlight everybody else. This one you can't not. It was just that good.
Yeah.
The Pack-A-Day, my Pack-A-Day overlord.
Yes. Man, yes. The Godfather or the Podfather, right? Fantastic superlative, Matt. That was great. That was a great show. I watched most of those on YouTube when they're on YouTube. Yeah. Love it. Well, that is our superlatives for the week. We have another week of football starting tonight. Of course, that I hear it's 30-20, you said, right? So
30-20.
We might have an exciting end. So with that, geez, thanks again, Jason, for joining us. And we'd like to ask you, do you have any final thoughts before we sign off?
Man, this was awesome. It was great to be a part of this and come on. I'm honored. Thank you very much for thinking of me. And you guys do a great job of highlighting the best of what's out there too. Speaking of the Packers Twitterverse and all of our network, really appreciate all the work that you guys do. Packers got to come up big on Monday night. Need a good big get right game. Need the Packers to win. So my final thought is going to be a go Pack go. And I hope at some point I get a chance to come back on with you guys.
Oh, I hope so too.
Yeah, Jason, this was so good having you. I mean, we definitely took way too long to get around to having you on the show. I mean, this is fantastic, of course. And I always enjoyed all my interactions with you in person and online, both. So people, make sure you're listening to Jason's stuff on Quick Slants on Game in Wisconsin on Mondays and on the Thursday Pack-A-Day with the amazing Mark Eckel. That dude he's amazing. I love Mark.
He's an encyclopedia. He's a lot of Eagles stuff, but he is really a good football encyclopedia. I love working with him.
The stories he has like ready to go. It always astounds me. So thank you so much, Jason. Before I sign off too, I just wanted to also say a thanks to Paul Noonan, because he had me on his show with Matub. Reporting is Eligible, which is a show we've talked about mentioned a lot in this show. But it was a blast to go on there and be part of the show. I was filling in mostly pretty much for J.R. Radcliffe, trending sports reporter with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, and that it was so much fun. So thanks again to Paul Noonan for that opportunity. It was a ton of fun. Dawn, anything else from you before I hit the end script here?
Just so proud of your work on that show, Maddie. Thank you. Thanks. It's wonderful. It's great to see you on other shows. I tend to go on other true crime podcasts. That's my gig. That's my where I spend my extra spare time, not doing this and a million other things. But I love that you've been invited to a couple different shows and you're participating with Lombardi's Bar, and I love it all. We just really do have a super cool community of Packer fans. I think we're special. I don't know.
That's why we're doing this show.
That's right.
We love it.
Because we love it. We love you. Okay, Maddie, let's bring her home.
All right. So, again, make sure you're following Jason on Twitter. I did not put your handle in the show notes. Jason, what's your handle on Twitter?
Real easy. It's at Jason Perone. Real simple.
There you go. Perone. Folks, make sure you're checking him out. Make sure you're following him. He's a great follow. I'm not just saying it because he's here. And I should mention, Jason, I didn't give you the shout out just because you're here either. That was going to be there whether you're on the episode or not. So that wasn't just like me pandering to the guest. I want you to know that was going in regardless. So anyhow, friends, of course, you'll find links in our show description for everyone we mentioned. So please check it out. Also, we'd love to have a chance to interview you and shout you out if you're a subscriber and a football fan, or one or the other, or neither, whatever. If you'd like to nominate someone to be a guest on our podcast, please let us know. Our DMs are open on all the social platforms. And folks, when you subscribe to our podcast, you help us to keep spreading the love in our community. And the best way to help this podcast grow is by sharing it with your friends and family.
Yes, Maddie, that's right. We love you. We're so glad to know you, to be fans of you, and have the luxury of being fans of the most storied team in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate your support, your subscriptions, and sharing our pod, and we look forward to seeing you next week on
Hey, we like your pod.
Football in general comes down to discipline and people owning their roles. And when you aren't disciplined or you go outside the scheme, bad stuff happens.